The moment the female border agent reached toward Mónica Delgado's fake pregnant belly, time fractured into heartbeats that could either continue or stop forever, depending on whether those uniformed fingers discovered what really lay beneath the maternity dress. 2 pounds of pure heroin, wrapped in plastic and surgical tape, pressed against her real stomach like a tumor of someone else's greed. Not the padding she'd been promised. Not the innocent deception of a woman pretending pregnancy for sympathy, but enough narcotics to transform her from desperate immigrant to federal felon in the space of a single touch. Mónica held her breath, one hand detectively over the false bump as any expectant mother would, while her mind screamed prayers in Spanish and her knees threatened to buckle from terror that had nothing to do with morning sickness and everything to do with a 10-to-life sentence gestating beneath polyester fabric. But to understand how a 34-year-old accounting clerk from Bogota ended up smuggling drugs disguised as an unborn child, you need to go back to the moment she discovered the pregnancy that would either deliver her to America or to a federal prison. The plan had seemed brilliant in its simplicity when the smugglers explained it in the Tijuana safe house. Pregnant women received different treatment at border crossings, more sympathy, less scrutiny, faster processing. Who would extensively search an expectant mother? What agent would risk the lawsuit, the bad publicity, the moral weight of traumatizing someone carrying life? Mónica had paid $8,000 for what she believed was theatrical passage. They'd shown her the prosthetic belly, demonstrated how to walk with the shifted center of gravity, taught her to place hands protectively over the bump when speaking to officials. She'd practiced a tired waddle, the occasional wince of false contractions, the glow of fictional motherhood that would camouflage desperation as anticipation. The journey to that border moment had begun 8 months earlier in Colombia, when the accounting firm where she'd worked for 12 years suddenly closed. American owners pulling out, taking jobs and futures with them. At 34, with specialized skills in international finance but no connections in Bogota's nepotistic business world, Mónica faced a common choice: downward mobility or northern migration. Her sister in San Diego had been urging her to come for years. Legal channels had failed, visa applications denied repeatedly, the American embassy seeing another potential overstay in every Colombian professional who couldn't prove sufficient ties to home. The legal route was closed to people like her, educated enough to threaten American jobs, not wealthy enough to guarantee return. So she turned to the Underground Railroad that moved human ambition northward for the right price. Through careful inquiries and whispered recommendations, she'd found Los Professionals, a network that specialized in moving white-collar workers who could blend into American middle-class life. More expensive than typical coyotes, but supposedly more sophisticated, using deception rather than desert crossings. The pregnancy plan was their newest innovation, perfect for women traveling alone, they claimed. Border agents, especially male ones, grew uncomfortable around pregnancy. Quick glances, perfunctory questions, rapid processing. The prosthetic belly was medical grade, used in film productions. The maternity clothes carefully chosen to suggest middle-class respectability. Even ultrasound images provided, showing a healthy 7-month fetus that existed only in Photoshop. Mónica had practiced for weeks, studying YouTube videos of pregnant women, mimicking their movements, their unconscious belly touching, their peculiar balance. She'd invented an entire fictional narrative. Recently widowed, traveling a family in California for support, baby due in 8 weeks. The story was designed to evoke sympathy while discouraging deep investigation. Who would harshly interrogate a grieving widow carrying her dead husband's child? The night before crossing, in a modest Tijuana hotel, they'd fitted her with the prosthetic. It was heavier than expected, the weight distributed to mimic actual pregnancy. The silicone felt warm against her skin, almost alive. Looking in the mirror, she saw a different woman, softer, vulnerable, carrying possibility instead of just ambition. For a moment, she allowed herself to imagine it was real, that she was bringing life rather than deception across borders. That's when everything changed. The handlers arrived at dawn with adjustments to the plan. The prosthetic needed modification, they explained. New security measures at the crossing required different preparation. Before Mónica fully understood what was happening, They removed the belly and began inserting packages into the hollow space. Not padding or weight distribution materials, but wrap bricks that even her accounting train I recognized as something far more serious than theatrical props. Her protests were met with impatience bordering on threat. The packages were necessary, they explained, to make the belly feel authentic if touched. New scanning technology could detect pure prosthetics. This was for her safety, to ensure the disguise held up under inspection. Besides, pregnant women were never searched. The drugs were just insurance, making the belly's weight and density match reality. When she threatened to walk away, abandon the entire plan, their demeanor shifted from impatient to dangerous. $8,000 had been paid. Services would be rendered. She could cross carrying the packages, or she could disappear into Tijuana's criminal underground. Another missing woman. Nobody would investigate. The choice was hers, but choosing wisely was strongly recommended. They showed her photos on a phone. Other women who'd made this crossing successfully, smiling in American cities, grateful testimonials about new lives begun. What they didn't show, what Monica would only understand later, was that all these women were now trapped in debt to the organization. Paying off inflated charges through various forms of labor, their dream of American middle-class life converted into indentured servitude. The modified belly felt different. Heavier, yes, but also more ominous. The drugs press against her stomach through prosthetics' inner lining. Their weight a constant reminder that she was no longer just an illegal immigrant, but a drug mule, willing or not. The maternity dress covered the deception, but couldn't hide her terror. At the San Isidro crossing, the morning sun cast long shadows between the inspection lanes. Monica joined pedestrian line, surrounded by legitimate crossers with legitimate purposes. Her forged documents, tourist visa, hotel reservations, return ticket, felt like tissue paper against the weight of narcotics pressed at her abdomen. Every step required conscious performance, remembering to waddle, to pause occasionally with hand on back, to project exhausted pregnancy rather than terrified drug smuggling. The Mexican exit was perfunctory. They barely glanced at her documents, waving through the obviously pregnant woman with the efficiency of people who'd seen every possible human condition past their booth. One official even smiled sympathetically, perhaps remembering his own wife's pregnancies. Monica managed to smile back, the expression feeling like a mask made of breaking glass. The American side was different. More agents, more technology, more scrutiny. The line moved slowly, each person questioned, documents examined, purposes evaluated. Monica watched agents pull aside a young man for additional screening, her heart hammering as drug-sniffing dogs worked the queue. But the dogs passed her without interest, trained for different scents than whatever the packages contained. When her turn came, the agent was businesslike, but not unkind. Male, middle-aged, probably a father himself. He examined her documents with professional thoroughness while asking routine questions. Purpose of visit? Visiting family. How long? 2 weeks. Where staying? With her sister in San Diego. The rehearsed answers came automatically while her mind screamed about the contraband 6 inches from his inspection window. He seemed satisfied, beginning to stamp her passport, when a female agent approached. Routine additional screening, she explained. Nothing personal, just random selection. Would Monica please step aside for a moment? The words hit like physical blows. This was it. The moment when performance met reality, when her theatrical pregnancy would be exposed as criminal enterprise. In the secondary inspection area, the female agent was professionally kind. She asked the same questions, received the same answers, but her eyes were more observant. She noticed things the male agent had missed. The way Monica's hands trembled slightly, the sweat inappropriate for the cool morning, the tension that had nothing to do with normal border crossing anxiety. Then came a moment that stopped time. The agent asked when Monica was due, expressing personal interest as another woman. Without waiting for an answer, she reached toward the false belly, the universal gesture of pregnancy appreciation, one woman acknowledging another's impending motherhood. Her hand moved in slow motion, fingers extended toward the drugs that would transform sympathy into handcuffs. Monica's reaction was pure instinct. She stepped back, hand protective over the belly, gasping as if experiencing sudden pain. Braxton Hicks contraction, she explained, wincing dramatically. The baby had been active all morning, probably stressed by travel. The performance was desperate but effective, causing the agent to pull back with professional concern. That's when salvation came in the form of bureaucratic interruption. Another agent called urgently from the main inspection area. A situation requiring immediate attention. The female agent hesitated, duty warring with curiosity, then apologized to Monica. Everything seemed in order. Welcome to the United States. Enjoy your visit. Mind the stress with your condition. Monica walked into America on legs that barely functioned, carrying 2 pounds of heroin and a terror that would never fully leave. She crossed the border successfully, but at a cost that hadn't been calculated in dollars. She was now not just an illegal immigrant, but an unwitting drug smuggler, tied to an organization that had her biometric data, her family information, her future in their files. The handlers met her a block from the crossing, all smiles and congratulations. They removed the belly in a van with tinted windows, extracting the drugs with the efficiency of people who'd done this countless times. Monica was given an address in Los Angeles, told to report in 3 days. Her debt wasn't fully paid, they explained. The $8,000 had covered crossing, but additional services had been rendered. She now owed them for the risk of drug transport, a figure that somehow equaled another $20,000. The trap was elegant in its completeness. Refuse to pay and they report her to authorities, complete with photos of her carrying drugs. Pay and remain forever in their debt, working off charges that would multiply faster than any accounting clerk could calculate. The American dream had become American nightmare before she'd been in the country an hour. Monica didn't report to Los Angeles. Instead, she disappeared into San Diego's underground economy, staying with her sister while figuring out options that seemed to narrow daily. The organization sent messages, first professional, then threatening. They knew where she was, knew where her sister worked, knew about families still in Colombia. Payment was expected one way or another. She found work eventually, cash-only house cleaning that paid a fraction of what her accounting skills were worth. Every dollar earned went toward survival or the debt that grew through compound interest designed to ensure permanent servitude. The pregnancy performance had gotten her across the border, but delivered her into a different kind of confinement. A year later, the female border agent appeared in Monica's nightmares regularly. That reaching hand, frozen in time, inches from discovery. In dreams, the hand completed its journey, found the drugs, led to arrest and imprisonment. Monica would wake gasping, checking her now flat stomach, reassured herself that the performance was over even as its consequences continued. She learned she wasn't unique. The organization ran multiple women monthly, all carrying drugs and false pregnancies, all trapped in similar debt spirals. Some paid through restaurant work, others through less legitimate means. The lucky ones had families who could raise the money. The unlucky ones disappeared into situations that made border crossing seem like the easy part. 3 years after crossing, Monica still lived in shadows, still undocumented, but now also criminally compromised. The accounting skills that should have guaranteed middle-class comfort were useless without legal status. The debt had grown to impossible proportions through fees and interest that would embarrass loan sharks. The organization still sent reminders, though less frequently, perhaps writing her off as bad debt while focusing on newer victims. She developed actual stomach problems, anxiety manifesting as physical pain where the drugs had pressed against her body. Doctors she couldn't afford to see properly would probably call it psychosomatic, trauma expressing itself through the body that had carried it. The false pregnancy had lasted hours. Its aftermath would last forever. Sometimes she wondered about that female agent. Did she ever think about the pregnant woman with Braxton Hicks contractions? Did she suspect what had really happened? Or was Monica just another face in endless streams of border crossers, forgotten the moment she walked away? The near discovery haunted her more than successful crime, the moment when everything almost ended, when performance almost met reality. The irony wasn't lost on her accounting mind. She carried life across the border, just not the kind anyone expected. 2 pounds of death disguised as birth, poison masquerading as possibility. The prosthetic belly had done its job too well, protecting not just her crossing, but criminal enterprise that converted desperate women into unwitting smugglers. Mónica Delgado had pretended pregnancy to cross a border. The belly had hidden something else entirely. She'd made it to America carrying contraband that transformed her from immigrant to criminal, from desperate to enslaved. The performance had succeeded, but the show never really ended. She was still acting, still pretending, still carrying weights that had nothing to do with pregnancy and everything to do with the price of crossing borders when legal routes are closed. $8,000, 2 pounds of heroin, 3 years of debt slavery, a lifetime of looking over her shoulder. That was a mathematics of her American dream, calculated by criminals who understood that desperation could carry anything if wrapped in the right disguise. The female agent's hand reaching toward her belly remained frozen in memory, a moment when touch could have meant salvation through discovery or damnation through success. In the end, she'd gotten both, crossing the border but never really arriving, free but forever bound to the weight she'd carried, the lies she'd worn, the price she continued to pay. The belly had hidden something else. It had hidden her future, compressed it into packages of white powder that poisoned every possibility. She pretended pregnancy and delivered herself into bondage. The border had been crossed, but she remained trapped between the woman she'd been and the criminal they'd made her become, forever pregnant with a secret that would never be born into light.